As the flood of Central American women and kids, it continues. It's not at the high point it was several days back, but it's still much, much more than what is considered to be a regular flow of illegal immigrant activity. They're still coming here, and some of them thinking that they can seek asylum and perhaps be granted asylum, but who qualifies for asylum? Joining us on 710 KURV, he's president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, Doug Stump, joining us on the Valley's Morning News. Welcome back to the show, Doug. Okay, so what does American law say about those who seek asylum? Who qualifies?
Good morning, gentlemen. Well, someone seeking asylum, they must first demonstrate that they were persecuted or that they fear persecution due to race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. That's the key essential underlying definition.
Okay. Now, race, religion, let's see, politics. I think the social group argument is the one that they might be angling for. Do they have a winning argument?
Well, it's difficult to say right now because the agencies in courts have been very reluctant to date to identify Central American youth who have resisted recruitment by the gangs as a particular social group.
Okay.
The argument has been advanced repeatedly throughout the last several years, and seldom do they succeed.
What does social group mean in your mind? Is that reference to ethnicity or a particular class of in society, some subgroup?
Yeah, it has to be like a subgroup. The group has to have social visibility so that they would be perceived as a group by society. An example was, back in the 90s, we were successful in obtaining asylum for affluent or wealthy Colombian landowners because they were constantly targeted by the guerrillas.
And they were wealthy.
And that's correct.
They were able to pay the attorney's fees to hire the right people to make that make that argument for them.
Some of them did get to stay.
All right. So if these wealthy landowners were able to make that argument, can't someone in the legal community latch on to that and say, hey, they were being pursued by thugs. Same thing over here, except, these thugs want these kids to be the foot soldiers for the gangs down there.
That's a good point. And what we see, though, is that the first counter-argument by the government is that, well, they're not being persecuted by the government. These are just simply random acts of violence. But case law does state that if they're being persecuted or being harmed by a entity there that the government can't protect them from, then that would rise to the level of a potential asylum claim. We think now that since there is so much attention being brought to the issue of gang activity in these Central American countries, that these kids do have an opportunity perhaps to be recognized as a particular social class.
Joining us at 710 KURV, he is the president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, Doug Stump.
Yeah, Doug, Tim Sullivan here. Okay, so yes or no, clarify as best you can. These children from Central America escaping just what is out of control, rampant, deadly gang violence, which could relate to their economic situation, the extreme poverty there, would they qualify for asylum?
I think the answer is perhaps so now because this group is receiving, or they no longer lack social visibility.
And can you pin any of this on the government, the failure of the government to act to rein in these gangs or improve the economy?
Well, I think a lot of it clearly is the Central American government's inability to control the gangs. I think we saw an interesting proposal, though, that was published in the New York Times earlier last week. It's an idea that was initially advocated by McCain and perhaps picked up on the administration. And the idea was, let's send a team to Central America and let's allow these kids to seek asylum from within their own countries rather than having to trek all the way to the United States. That way, if they successfully advance a claim, we bring them into the United States as refugees. If they're denied, they're not here in the United States, and we don't have to worry about the removal issue.
But the hearings are there. Those
Correct.
hearings are held there.
I thought that making the asylum claim from a foreign land was a prerequisite for any asylum claim.
Well, that would be the difference between an asylee and a refugee. A refugee is someone who is abroad attempting to apply for protection. An asylee is someone who's already got his boots on the ground in the United States. We've seen similar programs in Iraq and Vietnam and other countries throughout the world where we have said that these individuals can be screened and processed abroad. Now, what was interesting, though, in the article, is, and that being advanced by McCain, too, is that if the government wants to recognize these kids as a particular social class, then that would make that effort of applying for refugee status on abroad much easier.
How do you view? I'm sorry. Go ahead. What did I?
But the key is that under U.S. law, there's a limit on the number of individuals who can apply for asylum. And from what I understand, that number would be somewhere like around 5,000 is the number being advanced now for Central America.
How do you view the proposed change in this 2008 law? Just your opinion. The law that the anti-child sex trafficking law that would allow this country to treat the kids from Central America as
like
we
Mexico.
treat the kids from Mexico, and it would allow them to be sent back
Faster.
very, very quickly.
I think that was an idea that was initially advanced and put forth by the George Bush administration. I'm a big George Bush fan, and I think that there is a reason we have the law, and it should remain in effect today.
Without any change, and allow the Central Americans to use that as a loophole to come stick their kids here in the U.S. and keep them here for years?
Well, the idea is to provide protection to children. I think the government can
protection for kids.
If this law was
one
changed,
thing,
some of these child sex trafficking provisions would have to be watered down, and that's a problem.
I don't think so. I think these kids would get the same hearing 7 to 10 days, just like the Mexicans do, to hear their case and to determine whether they qualify for asylum, yes or no. And if they don't, send them back now. Yes?
That would be, yes. The changes being advanced right now by the Republicans would do that.
So any kid claiming, hey, I'm a victim of human trafficking, of rape, this thing bad, the judge will take that into consideration. But anyone else, just like the Mexicans, they come over here, they try to make a claim to asylum, they would be fast-tracked for deportation. That's what the change, that's what some of the lawmakers are calling for as far as a change, to make sure that we do not allow them to throw their kids by themselves, and for them to stick in this country and languish for years in this country, waiting for a court hearing they will never attend.
I think that the government can roll out a plan where they can expedite these hearings, yet still do so under the existing law we have today, which provides protection to the children. I know I have several of these cases, and some of these 13 to 14-year-old girls have been brutally raped working their way up. I just can't see putting someone in the courtroom and say, you're going to be here or out of here.
No, exactly.
I can't prepare a case that fast because of the trauma involved.
And that was the impetus behind Bush signing this law, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Wow.
Doug, thanks for your time. We'll keep in touch. Doug Stump is president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, our guest on 710 KURV. News, a service of Lone Star National Bank, bringing the bank to you in the Rio Grande Valley in San Antonio. Lone Star National Bank, the Valley's bank.
The man credited with spearheading the operation that led to the death of Osama bin Laden has been tapped to lead the University of Texas.
As the flood of Central American women and kids, it continues. It's not at the high point it was several days back, but it's still much, much more than what is considered to be a regular flow